incident took place on Sunday in Costa Rica. He was on a family vacation. He was swimming off of the coast of a town called Cocles in the province of Limon. He was swimming at Playa Grande. I mean, I've visited Costa Rica a few times. I was there with my family a few years ago, and those currents can be very...
We all heard the crack in Eddie Griffin's voice, and it wasn't just sorrow. There was a different weight behind his words when he spoke on Malcolm Jamal Warner, the kind of weight that makes the room go silent. When he called him a warrior, he wasn't speaking in metaphors, he meant it. And when he said they went to war with the Hollywood system, that wasn't nostalgia. That was a confession, raw and unfiltered. If you've been watching how Hollywood deals with black voices who dare to color outside the lines, then this moment hit different. This didn't feel like a tribute.
When I was on the show and we had such good times together, I was probably 18 and Malcolm was probably 17, 16, I don't know. And we would take walks together, all of us, and pick up food, talk, played basketball, hung out on the weekends, went to parties together. He was so...
It felt like a flare in the dark, a signal that something's off, that another truth-teller might have been silenced. And the way Eddie spoke, you could tell he wasn't just mourning. He was warning us. Griffin didn't drop any names and, honestly, he didn't need to. Every word he chose carried weight. Brother, teacher, director, friend, then, warrior. That shift wasn't casual. He didn't say they worked in the business, he said they fought it. That's a different kind of bond. You don't talk about a co-star like that unless y'all went through fire together. And that fire.
NBC News has just confirmed that actor Malcolm Jamal Warner has died at the age of 54. Authorities in Costa Rica telling NBC News that Warner accidentally drowned while swimming in the ocean on Sunday. Warner is best known for, of course, his Emmy-nominated...
It wasn't on set, it was in the system. A system that's been quietly declaring war on black artists who won't play the puppet. The ones who speak on legacy, who step off script, who refuse to just smile and perform. Griffin's words didn't sound like grief, they sounded like code. His tribute wasn't a goodbye. It felt like someone closing the file on a classified mission. So when headlines broke about Warner's sudden drowning, we didn't just gasp, we froze. Because let's be honest, we've seen this pattern before. A tragedy dressed up as an accident right after someone starts speaking too boldly. Warner wasn't living recklessly. He wasn't cliff jumping or scuba diving. He was at the beach with his wife and daughter trying to unplug on a quiet Sunday in Costa Rica. It was supposed to be a calm retreat, but according to the official story, he was swept away by a current. Just like that. One clean line. Too polished. The kind of language they use when they want the story to vanish without questions. But this doesn't read like an accident, especially when you start looking closely at what they're calling the rescue. Authorities say a second man jumped in after him, 29, from Nicaragua. Not a friend, not a relative. Completely unrelated, and somehow, also unnamed. No photos, no footage, no statements. First reported as critical, then suddenly released a few days later. No interviews, no updates, just gone. And yet, he nearly drowned in the same waves. We're told he's fine now, stable, incredible recovery. But no press, no follow-up, nothing. That alone raises eyebrows. Who was he really? A tourist, a local.
Just wanted to remind you, as I remind myself, that no matter what's going on, there's always a reason to smile. Like if you just take a minute to stop and take stock, I guarantee you can find at least one reason to smile. And if for some reason you can't find a reason to smile, then that's probably the best time to be the reason for somebody else to smile.
Or someone planted with perfect timing. Meanwhile, Warner's body was pulled from the water after 20 minutes of CPR, and this mystery man vanished like a ghost. Not a single tie to Warner. So why was he there? And why does it feel like we've seen this exact scene play out before? Different face, same script. The kind of ending that shows up too often when certain people stop playing along. This isn't some wild conspiracy cooked up for clicks. This hits differently because we've seen it too many times before. From Prince to Sam Cooke. From Michael Jackson to Bobby Christina. Black artists who had more to say than the music or scripts allowed, who poked at the wrong boundaries, who asked the questions you're not supposed to ask, and then, suddenly, they were gone. A heart issue. A seizure. A wave that no one saw coming. That's a haunting pattern that lives in the shadows of Hollywood. The silent code. Speak truth and pay the price. Warner wasn't just out here reminiscing about the Huxtables. He was asking why black families on screen had turned into caricatures again. He wasn't playing it safe. His podcast, Not All, Who took aim at the shallow portrayals of black life, and just weeks before his passing, he made it clear the show would challenge the narrative. He said it would dive into the real stuff: mental health, cultural identity, the pressure of visibility, The weight of blackness in America. We want a space to really explore, discuss, and acknowledge, he said. And make no mistake, that kind of space unsettles the powers that be. Warner wasn't just reflecting, he was confronting. And on his daughter's birthday, flower in his hair, smiling from Atlanta, he said it plainly. Life is leafing. But behind that cheer was purpose. He wasn't just being open. He was warning us that podcast wasn't just another creative lane. It was a platform, and Warner knew what it meant to hold one. He spoke about legacy all the time. His wife, his daughter, even his complicated feelings about Bill Cosby. He wasn't skimming over anything. He knew what the industry thought of him. Safe, harmless, America's little brother. And he was done with it. He was about to flip the script completely. So when Eddie Griffin calls him a warrior, we hear whistleblower. When he says they went to war with the machine, we hear rebellion. Strategic, ongoing, dangerous. Not symbolism, a real mission. And that's why this Costa Rica trip is under a microscope now. Because it doesn't just look like a family getaway anymore. It feels like a setup. And that unnamed rescuer, he's starting to look less like a savior and more like a missing piece in a much bigger story. Even the ocean doesn't feel innocent anymore. Warner's resume, stacked 84 acting credits, over 3 decades in Hollywood. TMZ even got the last known photo of him July 13th, arriving in Costa Rica. 1 week later, he was gone. And now that fans are going back, watching his final interviews, there's something chilling in his tone. He wasn't just talking, he was trying to tell us something. He spoke about the machine behind the image, about how fame strips away nuance, about how black voices get boxed in, watered down, then silenced altogether. And he said his podcast was the first time he'd felt vulnerable in public. Words that now sound terrifying in hindsight. Even the location raises eyebrows. Playa Grande Cahuta, gorgeous, remote, and nearly impossible to monitor. No security, cameras, no cell signal, no eyewitnesses. And maybe that's why the narrative came so quickly, so clean, so cold. Declared dead. Cause asphyxiation by submersion. Full autopsy completed. Case closed. But for those who've spent any time in this industry, you already know when it's this quiet, it's usually screaming something. And Branson, here's what's really haunting. Just days before his passing, Warner dropped a new episode of his podcast, and now, fans are listening to it like it's his final message. It's not just about what he said, it's the timing. He had just started raising his voice, louder than ever. Not All Hood wasn't just another culture show, it was a deep excavation of media lies, of black identity, of truth no one wanted televised. Warner made it clear. He wasn't here for a legacy that could be chopped, rewritten, or sanitized by someone in a suit. He wanted permanence. He wanted truth that couldn't be scrubbed out in editing. And that's why this doesn't feel like closure. This feels like someone ripped the page out, because we were finally getting to meet the real Malcolm Jamal Warner, the one who didn't fit the safe mold, the one who dared to tell the truth after the credits rolled. He wasn't clinging to Cosby Show nostalgia. He was building something entirely new from the bones of it, and now that voice is gone. In a foreign country, under suspicious circumstances, with a nameless rescuer, a vanishing witness, and one tribute that reads like a coded broadcast. We went to war, Griffin said. Not tried, not wanted, not almost, went. Past tense. The mission was real, and now, one soldier down. Warner wasn't just creating, he was confronting. And in Hollywood, that kind of truth-telling is revolutionary. Legacy here isn't gifted, it's filtered, polished, or erased altogether. And when a black artist refuses to play along, the tension is immediate. Warner's podcast wasn't PR fluff. It was uncomfortable. It was layered. He called out exploitation, dressed up as storytelling. He shredded the industry's love for stereotypes. And he made one thing clear: being vulnerable, as a black man, was an act of defiance. Not All Hood wasn't a vanity project, it was a movement. He tackled black mental health, a topic Hollywood still tiptoes around. He exposed how culture is lifted, gutted, and sold back like it came off a whiteboard. He questioned how trauma is monetized, but never healed. This wasn't about Famet, it was about justice, and that made him dangerous. Because the machine only lets you entertain, not enlighten. The moment you start teaching, you become a threat. He moved through Hollywood, with intention, with integrity. Theo Huxtable wasn't an accident. Warner chose every role like it meant something, and that's why this loss cuts deep. Because it's not just the man we lost, it's the mission, it's the momentum, it's the uncomfortable truth that when a black entertainer steps into purpose, the silence around them grows louder, and sometimes, that silence is deadly. Eddie Griffin seemed to understand all of that. His tribute didn't sound like a goodbye, it sounded like a message coded for those who know. We went to war, not he went, we. That word warrior doesn't pop up during sitcom reunions. It shows up when you've taken hits, crossed lines, and kept walking anyway. And now, we're left with the fallout. One voice gone, and An entire machine pretending it never heard a sound, but the pattern won't stay buried. Because Warner isn't the first and he won't be the last. Naya Rivera, Whitney Houston, Bobby Christina, found in water. Sudden, tragic, unanswered. Aaron Carter, Dolores or Natalie Wood. So many lives, so many accidents. And all we're left with are patterns no one wants to admit. Waves that don't just take, they erase. Let's be clear, this isn't just another tragic headline. This is Malcolm Jamal Warner, gone at 54, after reportedly drowning on a family vacation in Costa Rica, swept away by a current no one saw, assisted by a rescuer no one can name. It's all a little too perfect. A remote beach, no cameras, no witnesses. Authorities quick to stamp it accidental. Every checkbox ticked, all too tidy. And when the details start looking like a script, we have to ask, what's really being written here? Because Hollywood has long mastered the art of quiet exits. You don't fire rebels, you erase them. With soft endings, with medical events, with accidents, no bruises, just eulogies. That's how the machine handles those who refuse to shrink. And Warner, he wasn't just an icon. He was intentional, focused, sharpening his voice. In a town where control is everything, that's not harmless, it's threatening. Even more chilling is what Warner represented. He wasn't just a cast member of The Cosby Show, he was one of its last standing torchbearers. A man who embraced its legacy while distancing from its scandal. He didn't pretend Cosby's sins didn't exist. But he also didn't let them erase what the show meant. That balancing act was radical. Because while the industry tries to bury the show's influence, Warner tried to preserve it. And maybe, that made him dangerous. See. The Cosby Show once showed America a different version of black life, educated, united, thriving. But now, that image has become inconvenient. Hollywood would rather scorch the whole legacy than admit something beautiful came from something complicated. And Warner's refusal to let go of that meaning, that was resistance. It challenged the industry's need for clean erasure. For stories that end neatly, with no contradiction. He didn't just look back fondly, carried it forward. As a father, a podcaster, a cultural voice, he was evolving what Theo Huxtable stood for without imitating Cosby, but by elevating the message. That's what scared them. Continuity, because when legacy keeps growing, the industry can't bury it. Warner was living proof that a flawed beginning could still lead to powerful truth. And that truth wasn't frozen in the 80s. It was still unfolding. Theo Huxtable wasn't just a character. He was us. He was representation when none existed. He was hope in primetime. And with Warner gone, it feels like something vital was cut loose. Not erased, but dimmed. And we're left asking, was his refusal to walk away from that legacy the final line he crossed? Was that what made him expendable in an industry that buries what it can't control? And then there's Griffin's tribute. Not just grief, but something deeper, something coded, like a message for those still fighting. We went to war, he said, not metaphor, mission. He didn't just mourn, Warner, he mourned the idea of making it out clean, of surviving Hollywood whole. Because when you read between the lines, Griffin wasn't just sharing memories, he was sounding an alarm. So now, we're left with brutal questions. If Warner had stayed quiet, would he still be here? If he stuck to fluff interviews and sitcom reruns, would that accident have happened? This isn't paranoia, it's history. The kind that's edited out of Variety and ignored at the Emmys. The kind that only gets whispered. But Griffin didn't whisper. He said, "You taught me so much. About acting. About resistance. About the cost." Because this wasn't just a drowning, it was a disappearance. At the exact moment Warner was building something that could have changed everything. A podcast, a legacy, a blueprint for the next generation. And now, we're left with silence that doesn't sit right. A story paused mid-sentence. A truth that feels deliberately unfinished. So we have to ask, is this the price of truth in Hollywood? And if it happened to Malcolm Jamal Warner, who's next? Drop your thoughts below. Stay bold, stay aware, stay watching. We'll see you on the next one.